What is a good directory topic to dive into?
I wanted to have a business that was scalable, that was high margin, low startup costs, that could be sold as an asset, and that can be done anywhere in the world.
$2,500 to $3,000 a month you're earning is about as close to passive as possible.
I haven't really worked on any of these websites for probably 6 months at this point. When I saw how much I made at the end of the month, I was again shocked. It was around $1,200.
So much of what you're saying is going to echo with people listening.
And the reason why my directories are boring, they work, is because Google Maps is still kind of bad at helping you find certain things.
How important do you think link building is to the success of your directories?
You got to have a good strategy for getting backlinks.
The display ad concept is going to make a lot of sense for most people listening.
If I'm going for display ads, I'm going for as much volume, as high search traffic as I can.
What's your first 30 days once you've got a directory live?
I've seen a lot of people fail at that. So what I would recommend is actually...
All right, welcome back to the Niche Pursuits podcast. My name is Jared Bauman. Today we are joined by Frey, a SEO and directory builder. Frey, welcome on board.
Thanks, Jared. Appreciate you having me on.
Well, it's going to be a good one today. I said it a lot. I've been saying it a lot lately, but we've had some great guests lately. And today I'm excited about the topic. I mean, we could go some different directions because you do have your hands in a bunch of different things. We're going to focus, though, for the majority of the interview on this directory building that you've been doing and that you've had a lot of success with, especially of late. I mean, directories making a bit of a renaissance from my seat, in terms of what's getting talked about in our industry online. I'm sure you know that and understand that very well, of course. Hey, before we get into the details, though, can you share with us your background a little bit? Maybe how you got started in what you're doing today?
Yeah, sure. So directories is not my first business. It's not where I started. I've always been attracted to the entrepreneurial life. I started a business right out of college. It was an e-commerce footwear brand, ran that for 5 years. After that, got really burnt out. Tried to do the whole flipping, flea markets, garage sales, that whole thing. I did that for probably a year and a half, and that was my second main business. Real scrappy, and was paying rent that way. And then I realized that I wanted to have a business that was scalable, that was high margin, low startup costs, that could be sold as an asset, and that can be done anywhere in the world. And that was just my new standard, because at that point, you're starting up businesses where you're like, okay, I don't think this is for me long term. And I looked everywhere, scoured the internet, found SaaS and websites or niche websites. At the time, niche websites were huge. It was around 2022. And then we saw the core update that destroyed a lot of niche websites, as I'm sure a lot of your audience members know. And so I just figured, hey, I didn't even think about building directories. I just learned SEO, just self-taught myself through YouTube, and then said, hey, let me just apply what I'm learning to a website. And this directory thing, I kind of subconsciously realized a lot of these websites that are still pretty steady in Ahrefs are directories. They're super resilient. So I played around, built it, and within 6 months, it was getting 1,000 visitors a day. And I was like, what the heck? I remember randomly just signing into my Google Search Console, and I was like, wait a second. So I just threw on some ads, and when I saw how much I made at the end of the month, I was, again, shocked. It was around $1,200, pretty much pure profit. And that was essentially kind of the turning point where I said, okay, I can probably build a lot of these. And that was 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago at this point. So since then, I've built a bunch of other directories in random niches, some B2C, some B2B, some in healthcare, some in like thrifting niches, super random, but that's what I continue to do today.
Hey, everyone. This episode is sponsored by Mailtrap, an email delivery platform designed for product companies. You can go to them for high deliverability, growth-focused features, and industry-best analytics. And you can get 20% off all their plans just by using our promo code Niche Pursuits. Again, that promo code is Niche Pursuits, all one word. Check the details in the description below. Okay, now back to the episode. So This is going to be interesting because a lot of people with SEO chops have been listening to this podcast for years. You kind of alluded to it yourself. Like, hey, I got into the niche site business, niche pursuits. Like, so much of what you're saying is going to echo with people listening. And I think a lot of people listening since HCU, since the Helpful Content Update, have kind of been struggling with what do I do with my SEO skills, you know? And a lot of people have gone into services and started providing that as a service, which I know we'll talk about as well. But a lot of people are still looking for, we'll call it side hustle or projects they can build and then sell using SEO. And here we have directories that you're talking about that uses a lot of those SEO skill sets. And you're applying in a way that's creating a kind of somewhat passive asset that can be sold. So, anyways, I'm kind of just resharing what you said. But maybe before we get into how you built some of these and what's working, can you tell us where you're at right now? Any numbers you're comfortable with on the directory side of things, like how many, what kind of traffic they get, maybe what
Mhm.
kind of what they make, that sort of thing.
Yeah, totally. I'm an open book, but I just don't share URLs. The first time I did that, it invited a few competitors. Right now, I probably have around 8 or so directories, but 4 of them are directories where I truly went A through Z, like did the on-page stuff, built the links, at least starting to. 3 of them are rank 1, page 1 for the target keyword. Um, in total, I think those are probably around 80 to 100,000 monthly visitors for the first 3 directories. The 4th one's just recently launched, so that's why I'm trying not to count that. But um, yeah, and I would say this month I'm on pace to do right around $2,500. That's passive. I haven't really worked on any of these websites for probably 6 months at this point. And yeah, for the last 3 years or so, that's just been the case. It's always hovered around the like $2,300 to $3,000 a month passive. And that's personally because I like to go for the boring evergreen niches. Typically, what I see is that there's 2 different types of directories. You have your evergreen passive directories that just monetize through display ads. You can think Mediavine, Ezoic, AdSense, and then you have your lead gen, where you have sponsored listings, feature listings. You can do top of the funnel to agency services, as you mentioned. And that's where you get a lot more lucrative and high ceiling with your earning potential. For me personally, I've just audited my own ideal lifestyle and the way that I work. I like to sprint really hard and then just chill out. That's just how I am. Right now, I'm in a chill out phase. And so it's nice to just have that recurring income, even though it's lower. And in my mind, I know I can kind of chase something higher. It's just my personal preference. And so, um, yeah, that's kind of what I built so far.
It's great. Congratulations, because I think, we hear about passive, and for those of you listening, I'm using air quotes here. And a lot of the stuff that we end up getting into and building on the internet is far from passive. It's just not maybe full time work. But I would say this $2,500 to $3,000 a month you're earning is about as close to passive as possible. I mean, we're
Mhm.
really talking like you haven't spent any time on it in 6 months. You hardly spent much time beyond the build phase of it, right?
Yes, I will say, like, because it's so nuanced. And yeah, you're absolutely correct. You spend 100 hours in the beginning, right? It's hard work in the beginning. You do the on page, you build some links, make sure that gets to the front page. And at a certain point, when you feel like you're happy with the traffic and it's ranking on the first page high enough, yeah, that's when you can kind of coast. And that's been the case.
Well, awesome. Okay, let's get into some of the details here. I've got a laundry list of questions, so I'm going to try to maximize the time we have with you.
Let's do it.
From a high level, people are going to be familiar with directories, but they're going to be familiar with them on a different scale, right? A lot of people are going to be familiar with them, say, in the old fashioned 25 years ago model that is archaic and feels like something that they don't want to create. A lot of people are going to be more familiar with them in terms of newer directories that have gotten shared and are talked about on Twitter or X and these sorts of things. What is a directory as it relates to what you're building? Talk about from a high level what it is in its principal state.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question. So directories are archaic and they are old. The difference is that the directories that are successful today are actually aiding the decision making, right? I think they're like, I guess the on paper difference is that there's so much more data enrichment If you look at listings back then, it's like name, address, phone number,
Right. I
map
was
and
going to
pay.
mention NAP, and a lot of us who are experienced with SEO will think of directories as maybe just, citation building.
Yeah, exactly. But I think to go the extra mile, if you want to compete in today's landscape, you have to actually put yourself in the shoes of who is typing the keyword, which I know a lot of us do, but I always give the example of daycare, right? If you think about it, a parent is handing a child to a bunch of strangers at a facility. They probably have a bunch of questions like, are you licensed? Are there entertainment options? Is there a itinerary or schedule? Of course, what's the price? There's a lot of there's a lack of price transparency in so many niches, and there's so many micro decisions that ultimately lead to someone choosing the right daycare facility. Proximity is just a small one, which I think most people think of with directories. Um, and then there's another side of the coin, which is simpler. The types of directories that I build is really just consolidated information. So in the sense, it's like the same thing. In my opinion, a directory is just a list. I like to just call it a list. The utility of a list is actually really underrated. It's never going to go away, in my opinion. But consolidation is still very valuable. And the reason why my directories are boring and they work is because Google Maps is still kind of bad at helping you
Mm.
find certain things. And if anyone's listening and they want to test this out, you can go to Google Maps and type in liquidation store and see what pops up. You'll see 99-cent stores, you'll see thrift stores, you'll see liquidation services for businesses. But some people just like to shop at liquidation stores. It gets something like 20,000 monthly searches a month. So it's not really clear. There's a lot of fragmented search. And so the value that you provide with these types of directories that I'm building is just consolidating that information so it's easy to find in one place. So you have the data enrichment side, which I would argue is more tied towards lead generation, high ceiling, high profit niches. And then the boring stuff, the evergreen stuff, which I do, where the inherent value is just, it's hard to find. It actually is still hard to find in 2025. And there are niches where that's the case. So hopefully I kind of explained, those two compartments in an easy to understand way.
No, you did. And I'm glad you made the separation of, hey, there's kind of just aggregating data. It's almost like a list. It's almost like pulling stuff together that people have a hard time finding otherwise because Google Maps, other search platforms just haven't done a good job. And then there's the data enrichment method, which is kind of like combining different sets of data that exist independently, but you're doing something unique by just bringing it together and therefore giving someone an experience that they might be able to find on their own, but they'd have to go to 3 or 4 different places and know the prompts to have to even look for it in the first place.
Exactly.
Um, let's talk about selection, or really niche selection or directory selection. I mean, you have some experience. You said, I think you said you started 8 directories, 4 you're actively working on, 3 are doing really well. You've been doing this for a while. You mentioned a bit at the beginning about there's B2B, there's B2C, there's lucrative niches,
So,
there's boring niches. Like, where do you start when you're coming up with what is a good directory topic to dive into?
yeah, I think this is a question that always circles back to what you want. And it's it's the kind of cliche thing, but you kind of want to decide how you want to monetize. Are you like me, where you just want to kind of chill out and have something passive, put the work up front, but you'll earn less? Or do you want something more active, something that will give you quit your job money? You know what I mean? Um, that is really important because that's going to influence your keyword research. That's going to influence everything. How your website's structured, how much data enrichment. It's going to influence the cost of your project. For something like mine, I look for high search volume. That's pretty basic, pretty straightforward. Something around 20 to 50,000 monthly searches, with a ton of location-based queries. So, for example, like with the liquidation store, maybe liquidation near me gets 20,000 monthly searches, but I know I'm not going to rank for that right off the bat. I probably will rank for things like liquidation store Bakersfield, California, or something like that. And then slowly over time, as I gain Google's trust, I'll maybe end up just with a broad keyword liquidation store near me. So you want those location-based queries to have enough search volume. Ideally, I don't know, 500 to 1,000 per major city, like liquidation store Los Angeles, liquidation store Seattle, et cetera, et cetera. because I know that that's what's going to rank. And so those are the kind of keywords I try to look for. I also consider, the nature of the business. Is it going to like move around a lot? How hard is the data to acquire? With liquidation stores, you know, they have a location. It's like brick and mortar. So it's pretty evergreen. Like it's not, unless they close down, I won't have to worry about it. With lead gen, you don't have to worry as much about high search volume. If you have some high ticket niche, let's say commercial demolition, I think I looked that up. There's 50 people a month, searching that keyword, especially the location based ones. If you just get one out of those 50 and you sell that lead to a commercial demolition company, that could be worth tens of thousands of dollars. And the same is true for some healthcare niches and finance niches, legal niches. Um, so you don't have to worry about that as much. I would just look at the keyword difficulty to an extent, and then I would have a strong backlink game. You got to have a good strategy for getting backlinks. Not so much like worrying about search volume, in my opinion, because it's all like really high buyer intent based keywords for those types of niches. Yeah. So
How much does competition play into this? Are you like, would you avoid a topic if, say, you go to Google and you type liquidation store near me and I come up and there's eight, we can't say 10 results anymore, but let's just say out of the 8 results Google has on page one, 4 of them are already directories. Is that too much competition? Or would you say, oh, that's actually a good sign? Google's ranking directories. Let me go see if those directories are doing a good job. Where does competition play into this? Because we're used to it, perhaps in other areas
Mhm.
of niche research, but maybe not so much here.
Yeah, huge green flag. Actually, that's one of the biggest factors that I look for is a directory on the front page. And it's just proof that it works and that I don't know if it's a search intent or Google prefers the directory structure for whatever reason. Um, However, it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? If you see care.com and you're like, or Angie's List, right? Some of these directories are so massive that they've done an incredible job with data enrichment. So I always ask myself when I come across a niche with one of those massive companies in the front page, can I improve upon this or
Mm.
can I niche down further? So like with daycares, I think care.com is in daycares. I might niche down to something like this is a keyword I recently found. Um, Daycares with cameras. So like parents want, and apparently it's a deal breaker for them. Maybe they travel a lot, they're busy, they want a daycare where they can like log into an app or just basically see and check up on their kids anytime they want. And maybe that's a deciding factor. And so you can basically create a directory niched down and just consolidate all the daycares with a camera. And that could be kind of your competitive edge and then get topical authority with just that specific keyword. So yeah, those are like the two questions that I asked myself, but actually really important for me personally to find a directory on the front page for sure.
Awesome. Okay. Let's talk about building the directory. There's a number of different ways to go about it. I know structure of the directory can be very important. We've had someone on a couple years ago who talked about how important that is, and so we've talked about that. Like, where do you come at it from the building side of things?
Yep. So mainly two structures. It's got to be the pillar page directory or just your traditional directory where there's individual listing pages. And it really, the decision to choose which structure you're going to go with starts at the keyword research, I would say. Um, so there's like kind of two areas that I look at. If all of the the search volume is around those location based keywords like liquidation store Los Angeles, then I'm going to go on Google, just type it in and look at the top three SERPs and see what structure they have. If it's more or less like a listicle or like, like a pillar page, then that's what I'm going to go with. I'm just going to make it better. I'm going to add more data enrichment. And that simple strategy has worked out really well for me. Um, so yeah. And then I would say the traditional directory with individual listing pages, if there's a lot of keyword volume around Frey's liquidation store or Bob's liquidation store because it's just got a reputation. There's a lot of niches where that's the case. Then I would probably build out its own listing page because it deserves it. I want people to basically use that as a landing page. Um, So that's like a very simplistic approach, whether you go with your traditional one or a pillar page directory. I think pillar page directory structures are so underrated. Like I'm building one right now for a keyword that gets like 100,000 monthly searches. It's like so boring, so under the radar, and yeah, it should turn out pretty good, I think.
Maybe dive deeper. Explain the pillar page methodology, maybe as it relates to the example you've been using with liquidation pages, just so everybody really gets it
Mhm.
down, because it's important that you make this decision properly on the front end. Not saying it's irreversible, but if you don't make the decision on the front end of how you're going to structure some of these things, like it can be harder down the road once you either start ranking or once you realize that you didn't follow maybe a process. It's not as simple as like a straight blog, I guess is what I'm saying.
Totally, totally. Yeah, so the difference is just that a traditional directory with listings that you can click into is 4 layers deep from the homepage. So think about starting from the homepage, you go to liquidation stores New York, right? That's a state page. And then you go to liquidation stores in Brooklyn, New York. That's a city within the state page. And then you click on Frey's liquidation stores in Brooklyn, New York. So like
Right.
4 layers deep. The pillar page structure is just 3 layers deep. You just stop at the city specific page. If you want, you can even make it 2 layers deep. My first thrifting directory is literally just 50 pages on a WordPress site, one page for every state, and it gets 60, 70,000 monthly visitors. It's a pillar page in the sense that all the information is just on like liquidation stores New York, that version of the page. And it's really long. Like you can't
So it's
click
just
into
one
the
big listicle. It's like every time a new
huge
thrift store pops up, you just plop it in there and it's just one long listicle.
one super long listicle with a table of contents, internal links to the other state pages on the bottom. And the great thing is that, yes, it's not the best like UX from a mobile perspective, but that page ranks for like 1,000 keywords for every pillar page. It's kind of insane. And so, yeah, if, yeah, basically you would want your H1 to be the broad keyword, like let's just say liquidation stores New York, and your H2s would be the city specific keywords like liquidation store Brooklyn. And yeah, you don't need an individual page with an H1 targeting liquidation stores Brooklyn to rank really high for that. I all of my rankings are like page one, and those are like yeah, that's how I basically structure it.
That's amazing. I'm a bit shocked to hear that that is doing so well. Why wouldn't you? I'm just asking to play devil's advocate. I'm guessing someone's thinking this as they're driving in their car right now, saying, now that that page is doing so well, why wouldn't you go back in and add individual pages, i.e., 3 layers deep for phrase liquidation store, and then hyperlink from this massive listicle that's doing so well to it?
Um, like why don't I just go a layer deeper?
Hmm.
And I think that probably the true answer is it's work that I don't want to do.
Well,
It's
that's fair.
probably pretty
You
boring.
you said the
Uh,
way in, like, I'm in coast mode right now, and so that's a fair answer. But would that help? Do you think?
y- y- um, I think that it may help, but I think the nature of my niche is that people just want it. Like, there's so few in this thrifting niche, right? It targets a subset of thrift stores, like a specific brand of thrift stores. They're very like few and far in between. So people just want to see how many there are in a state, and I think that's kind of what I got from social listening, looking on Reddit. A lot of the social like media posts were, "Hey, are there any of these stores in California?" And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." I mean, there were some in specific cities, but yeah, I don't think it would help that much
Hmm.
for that particular niche. But I think a lot of other niches, the one that I'm building now, it's going to be a pillar page directory as well. But I'm going to go 4 layers deep with individual city pages as my H1 rather than doing state pages because it's too broad. There's too many stores. I want to drill down a little bit deeper. And I think
Yeah.
in this particular niche, it makes a lot more sense because there's like 12,000, um, yeah, 12,000 of these businesses. For reference, at the thrifting niche where I'm kind of describing this pillar page structure, there's only like 130 stores.
Yeah.
So it's okay to like keep it broad and keep it statewide, in my opinion.
Okay. And that's great clarity. Like, getting into the weeds on that was fun, because I think what you said at the beginning is there's many different ways to do it, and it sounds like there's some strategy to which one might be the best, and there's also going back to what you said at the beginning, like optimizing for where you're at and what kind of directory you want to build and how much involvement you want to have. It kind of all plays into the approach you take for it. Is there any technology that helps with this, whether it's a theme builder, whether you're using AI, like any sort of gains on the technological side of things that you can share with people?
Yeah, I just use so kind of like my tech stack for WordPress for the longest time was, of course, WordPress, and I used Outscraper, which is just one of many scrapers people can use. And I do scrape Google Maps. Some people might be hearing this and be like, "That's against TOS," and I would say you're not wrong, but it's a risk factor that everyone has to take into consideration. And there's a lot of scrapers out there. And after that, you want to have some, if you want some automation for the data enrichment, uh, I candidly did create a software for this. It's called enrich.directory. And essentially, it just allows you to input a keyword and it will search for that keyword in Google reviews for that specific business. And so you can like prompt it and ask like, hey, is this a liquidation store? Just want to confirm. Just do a sentiment analysis on the reviews and just tell me. Okay, well, does this liquidation store have like good prices? Like, what do people think about the prices? So that's like one way you can kind of automate it. Otherwise, it's pretty manual. WordPress kept it really simple. Elementor Pro, really, really simple. You can use a plugin called GeoDirectory if you want a programmatic SEO build. If you want to publish like 4,000 listings in the same day, GeoDirectory is pretty solid at that. There's a few of them, but that's my favorite. Um, and then, yeah, there are some extra plugins like WPL import. I like that. Some people build directories with Jet Engine. Don't really prefer that, but it works. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. In Ahrefs, that's kind of like where I go and execute my backlink strategy. I always use Ahrefs to look at my competitors' backlinks and then reach out to them and say, hey, do you want to do like, can you just swap out my link for this competitor's link on this article? I'll pay you like $50. And that's why Ahrefs is important. So that's pretty much it. I've been spending a lot more time in Claude Code and Cursor. I've actually been like super obsessed with it for the last 3 weeks to 4 weeks. And I'm building this pillar page directory on Claude Code. So that's exciting. But yeah, that's kind of my tech stack historically.
Okay, I love it. Thank you for sharing all that. I mean, everybody can go if they want to get involved in this, they can kind of go, research all the different things you just referenced. But that's awesome. One more question before we move into backlinks, because that's don't worry, folks, we're going to get to that. On page, what are there any other on page work that needs to be done? You've kind of talked about the assembly process, how you're building this structurally, what goes on a pillar post, what goes on a listicle, what the H1, the H2s are, how many deep, like we've got our mind around the structure of today's directories for you, but like what any other on-page work that needs to get done?
I think besides the fundamentals, I would say that I've kind of been doing a 180 on my takes with blogs because for a long time I didn't see the use case for blogs, especially after the core update. But I'm seeing a lot more blogs get referenced by LLMs. And so I think that's a solid use case, especially for a lead gen directory, because you need all the traffic that you can get. I recently talked to the CEO of Sam's List, which is a directory to help high net worth individuals find financial advisors and accountants and you name it. And she wrote a really simple blog. And she's starting to see like 1 to 3 people a day come to her website just from that, from ChatGPT, which is huge for her, right? Because one customer can be tens of thousands of dollars. And so I would say that is something that I've kind of changed my mind around. And I think like more structured data, schema, that's stuff that I guess is like, I guess it's kind of on page, but not. But yeah, I would say that's something that I've been looking into more, again, for the same reasons. LLMs tend to like more structured pages, but I'm sure most of your audience already knows that.
Yes, well, that's a whole other topic altogether, but yes. I was going to ask you about the blog, and if you bother with it or if you don't. So uh well, okay, let's talk about link building, and I'll start with a high level question. Like, is it mandatory? Do you think it's mandatory to get the kind of traffic you're getting again, I'm trying to think of someone who's listening to all this but is reticent to dive into the nitty gritty of link building, is thinking like, hey, is this one of those things where I can build it and eventually they'll come anyways? How important do you think link building is to the success of your directories? And could they be successful? Maybe not to the same degree without it.
It's hard to give a blanket answer because it depends on the niche. And I'll give you an example. I have my third directory that I built, fresh domain, no backlinks, really low competition niche. It hit 10,000, or it is still at 10,000 monthly visitors with no backlinks. It's just how it is. I literally just created a pillar page directory, and no one seems to be really be talking about them. And that was, yeah, that's just how it is. With the first directory, I definitely needed to build links. I had a competitor that was getting 100,000 monthly visitors. I needed to take them down. Um, and all I'll say is it took me one link insert from a super relevant article and website with real traffic, um, basically exactly like the same topic as my directory. And it took one backlink to overtake that 100,000 um, searches a month competitor. So I get it. Like, I don't want to do backlink. I don't want to do link building either. It's costly in some cases, time consuming. It's really boring. People don't respond if you do cold outreach. I get it. But sometimes if you build in the right niche, you don't need backlinks, or if you do, you don't even need that many. You just need the quality ones and a few of them at that. So it doesn't have to be this gargantuan task that you see. That's in my opinion. Of course, you need backlinks for any lead gen play where you're gonna have more competition. So it's super important. But again, I don't really care about any other backlinks than like hyper niche specific ones with real traffic. I've bought niche edits. I've spent thousands of dollars on niche edits. They are hollow, in my opinion. High DR, no real traffic, kind of buried deep into the website. Yeah, you can customize your anchor text, but come on, like, it's just a high DR website. That's it. That DR, in my opinion, is kind of a vanity metric, and maybe that's a hot take, but yeah, I've seen proof with my own directory builds. So yeah, that's what I'll say.
Well, good. We've talked to the person who maybe doesn't want to build links, but now let's talk to the person who does want to build links. And you've kind of already waded into it a little bit. What types of links work well for directories specifically that you found? And kind of we'd love to hear anything that you just don't think is working or that is maybe not as effective as something else. A lot of people, again, listening are going to be interested in this topic. They did use link building to drive overall authority for maybe their website pre HCU. Maybe they're still doing it with a local business, with a SaaS
Mhm.
product, with ecom, but they have that experience. And so let's get into some of the more advanced or more detailed side of link building that you've seen work well for directories.
Yeah, directories are weird because the nature of the keywords you're going to be ranking for are basically aligned with local SEO. It's like liquidation store in New York, right? So maybe like a typical person learning SEO might be like, okay, I'm just going to build citations, but that's not what I do. In fact, those are not the types of links that I've seen success from. It's like, I don't know what you call like national SEO, but essentially articles, blogs. I never know what to call
I
it.
know. I'm like, there's local SEO and there's
There's like
just SEO.
other, yeah, there's just SEO. That other is where I target. So like exactly kind of what I mentioned, just articles, blogs, mom and pop, small publishers, that kind of stuff. Um, those are like priority number one, as long as it's niche specific and there's real traffic. I'm down for that. I don't like, yes, I take DR into consideration, but it's like third or fourth priority when I'm going about it. I would say badges is a unique kind of backlink proposition for directories. Not a lot of people can just create badges for like best liquidation store in Seattle. Like, hey, we just wanted to award you this. Here's an HTML snippet you can embed on your website. You can't pull that off in a lot of situations, but directories can pretty easily. And so that's something that I've played around with and it works well. I think that the reason I mentioned this second is because it lacks that anchor text that would help you a little bit. It's just an image backlink, which is great. But I still think the first option is better if you can. Um, And yeah, essentially that's kind of it. And I kind of forgot about your question, if I'm being honest. Like, if there was a specific backlink question,
No, no,
that would.
I was saying what does work. You know, we kind of talked about, and maybe let me ask a follow up question on that to just also ask about what you were just sharing. You talked about niche edits not really working all that well. You talked about citations not really working well, but you have kind of said link insertions have been valuable. Draw the line between those. What's the difference between a link insertion and a niche edit for a directory site?
Yeah. So for me, a niche edit is basically when you go to a link building agency and you pay like $100, they will access their own network of small publishers and then put your link somewhere on a page. You don't know the page. You don't even know the referring domain. You don't know anything. You kind of just fill out the sheet that says like, yeah, like this is a like I would like preferably to be in the liquidation space, the secondhand goods space, but you don't know what you're gonna get. You're kind of just gambling, kind of. With a link insert, you are going into Ahrefs, identifying your main targets, and then analyzing their backlinks. Looking at, okay, well, this backlink is from Frey's blog. It's exactly to do with liquidation stores. And he has a ton of articles around this and links to my competitor. I'm just going to reach out to them. I know exactly the DR, the real traffic coming in, the topic, how many outgoing links there are, or I can look at so much more data and make the decision myself as an SEO whether or not I would want that. And so the difference in like the $100 spent with a niche edit and a link insert is night and day. And that's what I like about link inserts. And then the badges, I think you mentioned, is kind of in its own separate
Right. Yeah.
world. That's yeah.
Yeah, which that's awesome, by the way. That's a great tip because, you know, if you're a small business and you're like, I just got an award as the best such and such. And, you know, like, even if you're not really sure what it is, I'm sure a lot of people are like, I'd be happy to put that on my site, feature that so that people, my customers, my potential customers can see that. And so that's a great tip there. From a lot of what you're talking about with links that work well, it seems like relevancy is important. And again, I'm making a broad stroke statement. It seems like getting links from domains that have relevance to your niche is really important. You talked about DR not necessarily being a big deal to you, so maybe the power side of things isn't quite as important. Is that a safe assessment? Like, if somebody's building a directory, is that relevance component to the links they're trying to build really important?
I think so. I think that's the main factor that I look for is the page is my referring page super relevant, or at least like pretty relevant to my niche, and is there real traffic going to the page? I think like user signals in general are increasingly important, just in the last few years, and to yeah, just to legitimize you as a actual authority, subject matter expert. So that's why the real traffic's important to me. I want people flowing in from my referring page to my website, engaging, clicking around. I want those. And then, yeah, niche relevance. I think that's super important. DR, yeah, I think it's a vanity metric. I have a directory in Ahrefs, it's a zero point 0.1 DR, and it's the 10,000, it's the one getting 10,000 monthly visitors. And yeah, fresh domain. I think at this point, naturally, I've gotten like one or two backlinks for that directory, but it's still a a zero point 0.1 DR, which is the lowest possible DR that you can get scored on Ahrefs, and it's still ranking page one, rank one for the keyword.
That's amazing. Yeah. Um, so let's talk about monetization if we can for a bit. And you talked, I believe you kind of differentiated between there's display ads and then there's lead gen, which there's also or part of that, which is just charging for premium listings. And I think that maybe we separate that as a different model as well. Talk about which ones you've tried, which ones you've landed on, and maybe why you've landed on a certain monetization method over a different one.
Yeah. So the ones that I've tried in order of like length of experience are definitely just display ads first. I have a lot of experience with that. Digital products would be second, and any kind of lead gen would be third. And that's kind of the next chapter that I'm walking into right now. I'm building a luxury porta potty directory right now. Um, but yeah, just to kind of, yeah, the way monetization is tricky because you want to identify the earning potential in the very beginning of niche selection. But the truth is, without traffic, you have no monetization. And once you have traffic, you're rich with problems around monetization. Um, but the basic idea is that with any lead gen, I do try to find any service with relatively high ticket. Like a luxury porta potty can be rented out for $2,000 a day for weddings, outdoor festivals, you name it. So reasonably, I think like following Alex Hormozzi's mindset of like, well, what could you offer that'd be dumb for them not to take? I think I could sell a lead for $300 per lead, potentially if it's a really warm lead, fill it out, a request quote form. I have all of their information around a wedding they need a luxury porta potty for. I could probably sell that because that might be able to turn into like a $2,000, maybe even more, right? If there's multiple days they're renting for a customer. So yeah, like you want high ticket. Tons of like landscaping niches, of course, finance, healthcare, legal niches. These are leads that are potentially worth like $20,000 plus. Um, and quick funny story, I actually created a really crappy version of a porta potty directory. It still has lorem ipsum on the front page, and I just did it as a test. But a few weeks ago, I haven't worked on that website in almost like a year. I got the New Mexico State Fair as a lead, and they said, "Hey, we need 109 porta potties, like 3 luxury porta potties." It was a $20,000 lead from a website directory that had lorem ipsum on the front page, which is like kind of stupid. But yeah, that's the general gist of that. Of course, like one mistake that I made, really, really poor decision making, is I built a plasma donation directory. It's still up and running. It's just monetizing with Mediavine, but I didn't take into account how easy it is to actually reach out to these plasma donation owners. If you look at the landscape with plasma donation, there's like 15 of them in the US. All of them are doing like 100 million plus in revenue. It's really hard to like get in contact with them. There's like, yeah, it's just something I didn't consider. So that's something I would definitely take into account if you're building lead gen, is how easy is it to actually start building that relationship and eventually lead to like a lead gen play. Um, that's pretty much it for lead gen. I would say like the main points. Display ads are so easy. It's just like get the traffic, apply to Mediavine. Mediavine has Mediavine Grow now, so you can start applying at like 3 to 5,000 monthly visitors, and you'll get in. And then that's pretty much it. It's easy as that.
I think the display ad concept is going to make a lot of sense for most people listening, and especially if you go after those niches that have high traffic potential. That makes a ton of sense. Do you ever layer on the premium listing or other types of services along with display ads? Is that something that you've seen work well, or just that you've seen other people do?
Oh yeah, I see it all the time. I don't know if it's the best, depending on the niche. If it's a niche where you inherently have like a high trust situation, like ads on a finance directory would be kind of like, I don't know, it just gives you the wrong kind of impression, in my opinion. But that's just me. But I do see it all the time. The plasma donation site for a moment was like, for a month, I was making money with lead generation. I think I only made like 500 or $1,000 that month. But yeah, I had ads throughout that whole period. I had Mediavine going, and it didn't seem to be that consequential, so it was fine. I would say try to keep it separate, mainly because if you have a really high potential lead gen niche, usually you won't have enough search volume to make it worth it for display ads. That's why I like to keep it super segmented. Like if I'm going for display ads, I'm going for as much volume, as high, search or traffic as I can. I don't want to be like thinking about the lead gen side. It's like, I don't know. It's too confusing for me personally. There's a lot of depth with one side and like it's really shallow on the other.
Right, right.
Um,
Um, Let me bring us kind of all the way full circle and ask you a really high level question. For someone who's been listening to this and wants to go out and start their first directory, They do their research based on some of the strategies you talked about. They find their niche. They, listen to what you recommended in terms of tech stack. They've got the site all built out. They've got their long-term plans for link building. What's their first 30 days look like? Like, just from a high level, what's your first 30 days once you've got a directory live? You've obviously got your link building tasks that you want to get started on, but what are you doing for those first 30 days? Give people like a playbook.
Yeah. Um, I think I could go into the tactics, but I think at this point I've spoken to enough people where my recommendation seems slow, but it's, in my opinion, the fastest way, which is you just want to like learn enough to build and then learn more and then build. And the reason I say that is because you're kind of learning like 5 to 10 different skills with building directories. It's like keyword research. You have to do a lot of social listening. You have to do, website scraping, cleaning, enriching. That's a whole thing. Website design, monetization, backlink outreach. There's so many skills that you're trying to tackle. So if you try to just like build this very lucrative lead gen directory off the bat and say, okay, like I have my idea, I'm going to go straight to the website and like kind of just have high expectations going in. I've seen a lot of people fail at that. So what I would recommend is actually just create a really simple directory. If you're just starting out, maybe you have some base level SEO skills, just prove to yourself that it works. Like that momentum when you start to see you rank for location based queries and keywords, starting to see a little trickle of traffic, that's going to inspire you because I see so many bad websites on the at the bottom of the first page, and yeah, they're terrible. I mean, my porta potty directory, it's ranking for a ton of keywords on the first page, and it has lorem ipsum. So like, just prove it to yourself that you can do it. Um, Learn just enough so it's not overwhelming, and just start building. If I knew zero like about WordPress or anything, I would definitely go straight to Claude Code and Cursor. Um, it's really intimidating. I'm a non-coder. It was extremely intimidating to get started, and I didn't do that. I didn't learn anything for 6 months, and I did recently, and it's so worth it. It's so fun. So that's kind of what I'd recommend. Uh, Definitely spend the most time around ideation. I talked to John Rush and Tim Stoddart kind of recently, and we all agreed that thinking about the idea is the most time consuming part because there's so many like small micro decisions around monetization potential. Oh, can I reach out to these people? What's my backlink strategy? Like all these things that you want to ask yourself before spending money, scraping data, and like buying softwares and building a site. Those small questions are worth it, in my opinion. And then the second most time consuming part is probably the data enrichment.
Mhm.
And then everything else, like you can do relatively quickly, in my opinion. So that's what I would probably recommend. Um, I don't know that it's
I
not
love it.
30 days, but
Yeah, I mean, I was just giving you a number. Yeah, just something
yeah,
to give you. It's just a podcast host question, really. It doesn't have to be 30 days,
totally.
but um, hey, before you go, like, where are you spending most of your time? Because again, folks, like a lot of what Frey's been talking about is very passive after that initial launch, after that initial, time. That's what you said at the outset. Like, hey, put in, call it 100 hours, and then watch it grow, and then you can put as much or as little time as you want to into it. So, what are you spending your day doing? What are you working on?
Yeah. Right now it's probably a mix of four things. I have two ongoing directory projects. One's the luxury porta potty directory. That's a really big project. It's going to be an automated lead gen directory, kind of like Yelp and Care.com. And that's a big one. I'm using Claude Code for that. I'm also building a boring evergreen pillar page directory, also in Claude Code. I have a community of people, a free community and a private paid community for anyone building directories. So I'm always in there every day, just talking to people, sharing what I know. And then YouTube has been a wild and random occurrence in the last 8 months. I've been very lucky and grateful, but it's where I spend a lot of my time every week, just sharing what I know and trying to communicate what I'm learning to non-coders and beginners and anyone trying to learn.
Awesome. Where can people kind of connect with you or follow along with what you're doing? I know that the directory community you talked about is one good place, but like, where would you guide people if they wanted to connect with you?
Yeah, I think um, well, YouTube doesn't really, yeah, I would say Twitter or X is the best place. I'm really just on that social media platform. And then if you do want to pop into the free community, there's I think 2,600 people in there. It's just shipyourdirectory.com. You can access it through there. Same thing if you want a little bit more uh, kind of commitment and serious, you want to be around serious builders, shipyourdirectory.com. That's where you can learn everything you need to know.
Frey, this has been such a fun interview. I mean, I feel like you probably are going to inspire a lot of people. Obviously, this is something that is going to kind of scratch an itch for a lot of people who are looking for a place to put a lot of their talents, a lot of the things that they've done historically very well. You talked about how, hey, the online world is and will forever be constantly changing, but in many ways, this is a blast from the past. It's something that's been around for a long, long time and is still working really, really well, provided that you do some of the things that you talked about here. So I just can't thank you enough. I've got like a page or two of notes. I'll probably listen to this one again if I find the time to start a directory myself. Thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it, Jared. It was fun going to the weeds, and yeah, appreciate this.
All right. Until we talk again. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Jared.
Hey everyone, Spencer here, founder of Niche Pursuits. So you probably know the importance of building internal links so your site can perform well in Google. Today I want to share how Link Whisper can help you add outbound internal links to your articles. As you draft your article in WordPress, Link Whisper scans your site, identifying the best internal link opportunities. It then recommends the perfect anchor text and link to add. With just a click, your content is updated with new internal links. No more expensive tools or tedious manual site searches. Link Whisper does the heavy lifting right inside the WordPress editor. Say goodbye to the hassle of internal linking. With Link Whisper, you can focus on what you do best, creating great content. Use the coupon code PODCAST today and get $15 off. Elevate your website's internal linking with Link Whisper now. Building smart internal links just got easier. Go to linkwhisper.com today and be sure to use coupon code PODCAST to get $15 off.